Tuesday the 15th of June, 1943. Dear Kitty, lots of things have happened, but I often think that all my uninteresting chatter bores you very much. So I shall give you the news in brief. Mr. Fossen has not been operated on for his duodenal ulcer. When he was on the operating table and they'd opened him up, the doctor saw that he had cancer which was far too advanced to operate. I do pity him terribly. And I think it's rotten that we can't go out, otherwise I should certainly visit him frequently to cheer him up. It's a disaster for us that good old Fossen won't be able to keep us in touch with all that goes on. He was our best helper and security advisor. We miss him very much indeed. It will be our turn to hand in our radio next month. Kurpoes has a clandestine baby set at home that he'll let us have to take the place of our big Philips. It certainly is a shame to have to hand in our lovely set. But in a house where people are hiding, one daren't under any circumstances take wanton risks and so draw the attention of the authorities. We shall have the little radio upstairs. Everyone's trying to get hold of an old set and to hand that in instead of their own source of courage. It really is true that as the news from outside gets worse, so the radio, with its miraculous voice, helps us to keep up our morale and to say again, chins up, stick it out, better times will come. Wednesday, the 4th of August, 1943. Now that we've been in the secret annex for over a year, you know something of our lives, but some of it is quite indescribable. There's so much to tell. Everything's so different from ordinary times and from ordinary people's lives. But still, to give you a closer look into our lives, I intend to give you a description of an ordinary evening and night. 9 o'clock in the evening. The bustle of going to bed in the secret annex begins. Chairs are shoved about, beds are pulled down, blankets unfolded. Nothing remains where it is during the day. I sleep on the little divan, which is not more than 1.5 meters long, so chairs have to be used to lengthen it. One hears terrible creaking in the next room. Margot's concertina bed being pulled out. After Peter's finished, I step into the washing cubicle, where I give myself a thorough wash. Then teeth cleaning, hair curling, manicure, all this in under half an hour. 9:30. Quickly into dressing gown, then I hurry out of the bathroom. 10 o'clock. Put up the blackout. Good night. For at least a quarter of an hour, there's a creaking of beds and a sighing of broken springs. Then all is quiet. A certain person lies awake for about a quarter of an hour, listening to the sounds of the night. We can get a bit of shooting in the night, varying between 1 o'clock and 4. I quickly grab a pillow and scamper to Daddy. Once landed in his big bed, the worst is over. Except if the firing gets very bad. 7:15. The alarm clock that raises its voice at any hour of the day, if one asks for it, and sometimes when one doesn't. Crack! Bing! Mrs. Van Daan's turned it off. Creak! Mrs. Van Daan gets up, puts on water, and then full speed to the bathroom. 7:15. The door creaks again. Dussel can go to the bathroom. Once alone, I take down the blackout, and a new day in the secret annex has begun. Friday, the 10th of September, 1943. Every time I write to you, something special seems to have happened, but they're more often unpleasant than pleasant things. However, now there's something wonderful going on. Last Wednesday evening, we sat round listening to the 7 o'clock news, and the first thing we heard was, "Here follows the best news of the whole war. Italy has capitulated." Italy's unconditional surrender. God Save the King, the American national anthem, and the Internationale were played. As always, the Dutch program was uplifting, but not too optimistic. Sunday, October the 17th, 1943. Mr. Kurpoes is selling clothes for Van Daan. It is an unpleasant fact that the Van Daans have run right out of money. Mrs. Van Daan will certainly have to part with her fur coat. They've had a terrific row upstairs about it. I am dazed by all the abusive exchanges that have taken place in this virtuous house during the past month. Daddy goes about with his lips tightly pursed. When anyone speaks to him, he looks up startled, as if he's afraid he'll have to patch up some tricky relationship again. Mummy has red patches on her cheeks from excitement. Margot complains of headaches. Dussel can't sleep. Mrs. Van Daan grouses the whole day, and I'm going completely crackers. Quite honestly, I sometimes forget who we're quarrelling with and with whom we've made it up. The only way to take one's mind off it all is to study, and I do a lot of that. Friday the 29th of October. There had been resounding rows again between Mr. and Mrs. Van Daan. It came about like this. I've already told you that the Van Daans are at the end of their money. One day, some time ago, Koophuis spoke about a furrier who he was on good terms with. This gave Van Daan the idea of selling his wife's fur coat. He got 325 florins for it, an enormous sum. However, Mrs. Van Daan wanted to keep the money to buy new clothes after the war, and it took some doing before Mr. Van Daan made it clear to her that the money was urgently needed for the household. The yells and screams, stamping and abuse, you can't possibly imagine it. It was frightening. My family stood at the bottom of the stairs with bated breath, ready if necessary to drag them apart. All this shouting and weeping and nervous tension are so unsettling and such a strain that in the evenings I drop into my bed crying, thanking heaven that I sometimes have half an hour to myself. At such times, Daddy, Mummy and Margot leave me cold. I wander from one room to another, downstairs and up again, feeling like a songbird whose wings have been brutally clipped and who's beating itself in utter darkness against the bars of its cage. Go outside, laugh, and take a breath of fresh air, a voice cries within me. But I don't even feel a response anymore. I go and lie on the divan and sleep, to make the time pass more quickly, and the stillness and the terrible fear, because there's no way of killing them. This evening, while Ellie was still here, there was a loud, penetrating ring at the door. I turned white at once, got a tummy ache and heart palpitations, all from fear. At night, when I'm in bed, I see myself alone in a dungeon, without Mummy and Daddy. Sometimes I wander by the roadside, or our secret annex is on fire, or they come and take us away at night. I see everything as if it is actually taking place, and this gives me the feeling that it may happen to me very soon. I simply can't imagine that the world will ever be normal for us again. I do talk about after the war, but then it's only a castle in the air, something that will never really happen. If I think back to our old house, my girlfriends, the fun at school, it's just as if another person lived it all, not me. I see the 8 of us with our secret annex as if we were a little piece of blue heaven, surrounded by heavy black rain clouds. The round, clearly defined spot where we stand is still safe, but the clouds gather more closely about us, and the circle which separates us from the approaching danger closes more and more tightly. Oh, if only the black circle could recede and open the way for us.